Okay, this is episode 120 of RV Dream Makers, and it is March 22nd. We are up on top of a hill overlooking the town of Cottonwood, Arizona. We finally left Yuma, and if you notice, this is Dead Horse Ranch State Park, and there's the RV park we're staying in right now for a week, and then we're headed to Vegas for a week. But Sedona is about 20 miles north of us. We've been up there disc golfing.
That's true.
Back there in the background, way up on the mountain. I don't know if you can see it because this doesn't zoom, but up on the mountain there is the town of Jerome, which is a really neat area. But anyway, this is the last episode of last year. So starting in 3 weeks, we will start having where we left off. We leave off at home after Christmas. So I'll let Michelle tell you about this. Okay, our battery went dead on the GoPro, so now we're finishing this.
So this episode, my mom and I are still in Waco, and this is of the castle tour that Chip and Joanna bought. And it's really interesting. They opened it up, and they just got a special permit for a short amount of time to open it up for tours, and they're giving the money to charity. So they're going to try to build a community playground for the kids of Waco. But it's long. It's like 30 minutes long. There's also the Dr. Pepper Museum, but I just really have pictures from that. And then my mom trying Dr. Pepper, which she was not a big fan of. Hers tasted weird though. My diet was better. I don't know. She needs a redo. But anyway, it is a little bit long, but I just find it was just so interesting hearing about the history of the castle and how it was originally and how they found everything. It was in the basement and just the things that they did. So that's the main bulk of it, is the castle tour. I also have the hotel we stayed in, which is literally right next door to the silos. It is amazing, and it was only $100 a night. Super nice hotel. You just walk right and you're right there to it. So I also have video footage of that. So I hope you enjoy this episode. So we're in Waco, and we are literally next to the silos. You can get silos view, but the room rate is way more expensive. But these are the rooms, and it's the Pivovar Hotel, Pivovar, and it has a restaurant attached to it, but it is really nice. I mean, like, it is high-tech everything and very nice rooms. Like I said, I did not get the views of the silos because they're just right next door. This is the view out the window, but the silos are just right over there to the left. That's Jimmy Don's store right there. So awesome hotel, and they're only like $100 a night. We're staying here for 2 nights, but it is very nice in here, so I highly recommend this for anybody that's coming to visit the silos. And I'll show you how close they are. We walked there we got here too early to check in, so we're gonna walk back just to walk around and maybe eat at one of the food trucks there. So this is our door right here, but this is the restaurant. It's not open today, but it's a restaurant, and then it's a brewery. Yeah, and a restaurant. So is here, and you get 2 free drinks. Yeah. Yeah, they have suites available, and I'm sure that those have the view of on that side of the hall, I'm sure they have the view of the Magnolia, but it's only 3 floors, but pretty awesome. There's our hotel, and we're in the markets. which we won't be on the side of the hotel with the train, so if one comes through, at least we're not on that side. But that's how close we are to the silos. It's just right there. It's amazing. So we're taking a tour of Chip and Joanna's castle that they redid. We get to go through all the rooms, so we get to walk the grounds. She said until we meet her at 9, so we get to go in it. I don't know if I get the video. You think you can walk on the grass?
I don't know. Let's walk around the front because we have a walkway down there.
I'd love to see what's in that little house. Of course, her landscaping is gorgeous. Guess this is the side entrance. We're meeting her at the front entrance. I guess you almost have to walk on the grass. And here's the front. Yeah, I think they got sprinklers.
Alright, I'm going to talk about this door really quickly while we put that door open. So this door is original to the house. It's 10 feet tall, it weighs 400 pounds. It's 8 inches at its thickest point right here. That door knocker was a gift to the Abiel family on completion of this castle. I'm going to tell you more about them in just a minute. It was given to them in 1913 as an antique. They believe it dates to around 1850, which puts it about 175 years old. With a piece of land. Now the original piece of land, we're not sure how big it was, but from photos we guesstimate at least about 5 blocks. It was a huge piece of land. And all that remains today is what we're on, the castle, and the parking lot next door where you guys park. Well, he knew he wanted to build a house, then he knew he wanted a basement. Basements are very unusual for us to see in Texas. I've seen maybe 3 my entire life in Texas. Our ground is not very accommodating for basements. You guys have basements everywhere out there, don't y'all? Yeah, you would think it'd be great to have basements here, but no, it's a horrible place to have basements. So he started working on the basement walls, and he worked on this house for 16 years, and he only completed the basement walls and some of the first floor facing of the property, and he realized he wasn't going to complete this house. He needed to sell the property. So he sold it to a man by the name of Ripley Hanrick. And this is where our castle comes into play. Because Ripley was a well-traveled German man. He was actually in Texas at the time of the cotton business. He was a cotton broker. And he said, I want to build a castle, like these beautiful castles I've seen along the Rhine River in Germany. But he kept Mr. Tennant on as a stonemason, which is why all the same stonework does continue all throughout the facing of the property here. So they worked on the house together for 2 years, and then Ripley ran out of money. So at that point, the only thing that was completed was the basement walls, the stone facing of the house. Not one piece of wood or wall was in this house at all, and they deserted the property. The property sat here just a shell of a building for about 6 years. So now we're at 1912. Along comes a man by the name of Captain Alfred Abiel. Captain Abiel was a retired Civil War captain from the Union Army. He was actually from New York, and he heard about this building and said, that's perfect. I'm looking for a place for my family to spend my retirement. So he bought the property, and he hired architects by the name of Roy E. Lane, and he and Roy worked together, and they had this house completed in less than a year. Really just a testament to wealth that he had. And finally, someone had the resources to be able to get it done. And so the Abiel family moved in this house in 1913, and they lived here almost 30 years. Ultimately, Captain Abiel passed away. Mrs. Abiel didn't need this big house, so she sold it to a family whose daughter grew up to be the first female pharmacist here in Waco. And then they also, they left the house to her when they passed away, and she didn't need the big house because it was just her. So she donated the house to Methodist Church. Now the Methodist Church used it for a few years for their youth group meetings, and then ultimately the Methodist Church sold the house. So I'm not even gonna bother with you the details from what happened from that point until Chip bought this house in 2019, because now we're in the 60s, and until 2019, basically this is what happened. Sold. About 6 times the house had sold. So basically after those first 2 families, no one lived here for a substantial amount of time. Some of those purchases were investors who never even moved in the house. And the last people that had lived here had actually left it deserted for about 7 years before Chip actually bought it in 2019. He bought it at auction for $400,000. It was the 4th time that Chip had been on the castle. The first time was 20 years ago, before there were the Chip and Jo you guys know today. And he told Jo, I've been on the castle and I didn't get it. And she said, don't ever tell me if you do it again, it's gonna bankrupt us. I don't wanna know anything about it, this is our responsibility. So we didn't tell her the next 3 times until it was their responsibility. But today, Jo loves this house. She actually said last week this is her favorite project she's ever worked on. And she would love to see a family live here again one day. So they started renovations in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. So COVID hit, we had a lot of setbacks, everything took longer, we had a lot of projects overlapping. So we didn't actually complete renovations until 2022. Now in 2023, we briefly opened the house to tours for a few months. We did some magazine shoots in here. I'll show you some of those today. We let the neighborhood here in to see the house for free because they've been so accommodating to us for the 2 years of renovating the house and filming the show. This neighborhood that we're in is called Castle Heights, named after the castle. It's the first recognized neighborhood in McLennan County, so it's a historic neighborhood. So because of that, we have extra tight restrictions on us in this area that we're in. So we can never be a commercial business here, we can't be an Airbnb, and we can't have signs out front, all because of this historic neighborhood that we're in. So after we had the house open for a little while, we closed the house to tours and we listed it for sale. That was always the intention, was to flip the castle. And so Chip and Jo actually went to the table for negotiations on the sale of the castle. They had an interested buyer. But the city of Waco at the same time came to Jo and said, if you guys want a temporary 6-month museum license to do tours of the castle, we'll let y'all have that. So back in negotiations, Jo said she started to feel a little uneasy about the sale of this particular man. Turns out he didn't want to move to Texas at all, didn't want to live in the castle for sure. But she wasn't really sure what his intentions were for the castle. And if you know anything about Chip and Jo, they're very faith-based people. Jo said, I always trust my instinct, it's always led me in the right direction. And she went to Chip and said, you know what, we don't need to sell the castle. Let's just hold on to it. Let's make a little money for charity, and then we can reassess. And so that's where we are today. So we just started using our license end of April. It was set to expire the end of this month, but we just got word 2 weeks ago that they are extending our license, so we get to stay open and decorate for Christmas. So we're super excited about that. This is a drawing room, and this was the drawing room when the Bills built this house. And so when Jo was trying to decide what she wanted to do with all her spaces, she's like, okay, maybe we'll stick to that idea. But she heard a story connected with the space that she really loved. When the Bills moved to this house, they had one son that was still living at home, William. And William was of marrying age, and this is where he would court his potential wives. And so Mrs. Bill would go around Waco and find the women of high society she thought were good enough for her son and bring them here, and he would court them. And I want to show you all these pocket doors while we're talking about them, because these pocket doors are all original and the hardware. And she would close these doors, there's 2 here, there's 1 over there, and she would spy on them and listen to their conversation and be sure they didn't leave this area. And Jo, having 2 boys their dating age, was like, oh, that's me, I would do exactly the same. So she said, we're definitely gonna keep that the drawing room just because I love the history associated with that space. Now, when the Bills built this house, this was not their dining room. Their dining room was on the other side of this wall. This actually was basically their den, their less formal living space. And Mrs. Seville wanted an amazing statement piece, and that's what she got with this piece right here. Jo calls this the star of the show in the house. Has anyone here been to the Biltmore?
Yeah.
So the Biltmore utilizes the same stone in their mantles and fireplaces. This is called cane stone. It's from the Cane region of France. It's in the limestone family, but it's a casting stone. So you heat it really, really hot, and you can make molds of it. So all the beautiful design you see here is all made from molds. Right here in the middle, we have the Avila family crest with an Avila tree. And then over here, we have the growth chart of kids that lived here through the 80s. And Jo thought that was so fun that we had something from the first family to last family. We're about to take that off of there. And if you've seen Fixer Upper the Castle, you might have noticed that that mirror was not there. There was just a hole in the middle. We did put that mirror there. We aged it, so it looks like it's been there forever. But what the Abiles actually had there, and what we think that space was made for, was a mounted zebra head. Would have been pretty cool, I guess, over 100 years ago to have that there. Now there's zebra all over Texas. paneling on the walls here also was not here when we bought the property, but this is original. We found it all in the basement, wrapped and labeled where it went in the house, so we just had to refinish it and put it back on the walls. The wallpaper at the top of the walls here is from a new line of wallpaper from William Morris called Historic. We have 3 in the house today. You're going to see from that historic line, but it's very similar to what the Beals actually have here. A beautiful floral tapestry that plays so well with the floral we see in the mantle. Now, this room was not here when we bought the castle. Today is Joe's favorite room in the entire castle. But we can tell from the old photos of this house and from the facing of the house, at some point there was a 2-story structure here. We actually came into the house, this was all boarded up with plywood. These doors are original, but they were also found in the basement, wrapped and labeled where they went in the house. So Joe was adamant we were going to rebuild some type of sunroom or garden space in here, because what castle wouldn't have that type of space. There were also stairs that went down to the yard there. There was a huge pool, huge pool. If it wasn't the first residential pool in Waco, it was definitely one of the first residential pools in Waco. Joe said, get that sucker out of here. I'm not dealing with a 100-year-old pool. So we did dig it out. There's plenty of space here. Someone buys a castle and they want to put another pool in. And that little triangle building you see on the side right over there, that was the Beals pool house.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Joe really wanted to rebuild some sunroom type space in here. So yeah, so we're gonna do that. But it felt really weird to walk from the castle out into a brand new build. So she did do a couple things to age the space in here. One is leaving that beautiful stone facing exposed there. So at the bottom you see that lighter color stone, that's the limestone, then it moves up into the sandstone. And the second thing she did were these floors. These floors were actually sourced from a European chateau. They're as old as the castle, but it makes us feel more like we're in a renovated old space now instead of a brand new build like we actually are in here.
It was a closet. She made it into a bathroom. This is the butler's pantry.
Now, when this house was built, this actually was Captain Bill's office in here. And the original kitchen was in the basement. There was a dumbwaiter that brought the food up to Bill's dining room. Well, that obviously doesn't work for a modern family, so Joe had to find a space big enough for a modern family kitchen on this level of the property. Because we all like big kitchens now, it's where everyone gathers. But that was really difficult here because we couldn't take out any walls because all of these walls support a big mantle above them. So Joe's solution was basically having 2 kitchen spaces. So we have this kitchen, which we call our butler's pantry, and we have a main kitchen we'll see in a minute. But Joe's thinking really is this is most of your storage. You're gonna see all your storage you can have here, and more of a prep space. So if you have a big Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner, you can do your big dinners in here, close the door, no one sees your mess while you're out in your next kitchen space entertaining. Or if you have caterers, we have a door right there directly outside, so your caterers can come in and serve from this space. Again, never really interacting with you while you're entertaining in your next kitchen space and dining room back there. This is Joe's favorite mantle and fireplace in the entire house. This is pink granite. It was sourced from Europe by Mrs. Beal. 2 light fixtures. If you guys can all see these are the only 2 original light fixtures that we do have in the house. We found these in the basement. They were still made to burn gas, but we had them wired for electric, of course, and mounted for you guys to enjoy because they're very cool. Very cool Art Deco we associate with the 20s, all the way to the base. They're just a work of art. But we believe they're original to the house when it was built. At that point in this area, believe it or not, they would have been a little risque to see in a house in our area at that early of time, and that's why we love them. They're very fun. Now, when you walk into the kitchen here, if you look out the first window to your right, you'll see the only 2 original exterior light fixtures. It's these 2 pendant lights under the portico shade.
Oh. Those are original.
So I'm going to spread around in here for a minute.
Are you going to explain these buttons?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is where we lost our fireplace right here. We couldn't keep the fireplace because we did change the floor plan upstairs to a bedroom, which wouldn't allow for our flue to go all the way up. And of course, we want all the fireplaces in this house to work. But it made the perfect spot for the range there. If you've watched Magnolia Table, the cooking show, you might recognize the same brand range we use on the cooking show. It's called La Carnu. They're from France. They're custom made to order. I was told they cost as much as a car, and so I tried to price them, but I couldn't. You can't price them unless you build one. And so I had a guest on a tour here one day, and he said, "That's the cheap one. I have that one." I said, "Perfect. Do you mind if I ask how much it costs?" He said it was $12,000. So I was like, okay, that gives me an idea. I mean, it doesn't sound cheap to me, but it gives me an idea. That's what I was curious about. But I heard an even crazier story. Actually, the one we use on the cooking show, it's much larger. It was custom made for the space of the grist mill. It says a grist mill on it. Actually, all the tops are brass on that one. And that one, our woodworker Marvin told me he was there when they delivered it, and it was $100,000.
Oh my
Yes, they're literally a work of art. They're a work of art. On one episode of the show, Joe did address it as either oven or stove, and La Carnu called us and said, "It is a range." So now, every time I hear say range, I laugh to myself because that is not a normal word for us to use around here when referring to your oven. But she will always, she's been reprimanded, so you'll always hear her say range now. But they really are just a work of art. They're really beautiful. But this is the original mantle. We weren't about to take that down just because we took out the fireplace. So we raised it about a foot there just to keep that beautiful element. And the doors that you see here are the original doors. The dumbwaiter, we did take the dumbwaiter out because we don't need that anymore, but we love the doors. I'm going to reach around here real quick and just open this. And we made a little spice cabinet there. And of course we want to mention this piece right here in the corner. This piece is original to the house, really gorgeous piece. You see all that original glass. I don't know how this glass survived so long, but it did. It's beautiful. And Joe had said if we find any trace in that house, there have ever been push button lights, we're going back to push button lights. And so this light plate here is actually the only original one that we have. We did find this in the basement. And when we did, we converted the entire house to push button. Any questions in here? Let's get all cozy in the bed one day. You can feel free to have a seat. This room actually behind us here, in a minute we'll see the bathroom, but when this house was built, it was actually just a dressing area for Mrs. Avil. She had a chambermaid that helped her dress for the day, and she had a private balcony. We have 3 private balconies in this house. Unfortunately, I can't take you on them for tours. Insurance will not let me take you on them. The side rails are very short, but we'll be able to see them as we move throughout the house today. But a couple things to note in here. One is that beautiful wall windows again. This room is the same floor plan as the drawing room below us. We see a lot more original glass in these window panes here. Those built-in y'all are sitting on over there are all original to the house also. And all of the rest of the original flooring in the entire house we brought together in this space. So this is all of the rest of the original flooring here. And for any of you who are curious how Jo actually decorates her own house, I'll give you an idea. Because that tile right there on the fireplace hearth, Jo actually ordered for herself, for her extra bath in her farmhouse. And when she received it, she realized it was very delicate. That middle gray area is 16 teeny tiny separate little tiles. She thought for sure that was an illusion when she ordered it, but it was not. And so she received it and said, "There's no way with 5 kids I'll be ripped up in 2 weeks. So let's put it in the castle so at least someone can enjoy it if I can't." But it's really beautiful, and it plays really well with the tile we're going to see in a minute in the primary bathroom. Okay, got any questions in here?
Oh my.
I remember seeing that on this show.
Is that like a textured wallpaper?
It's painted textured wallpaper. We actually got that off overstock.com. Also a little water closet in the corner behind y'all. And if you've seen Fixer Up at the Castle, you might recognize the little shaving table there because they went to an antique store and Chip latched onto that piece. He wanted it and it was broken and he was repeatedly told no, he was not getting it. But you can see how well that went because the piece is here and it's fixed. Now when Chip and Jo bought the castle, there was actually a wall right here. This entire space was a wall. And there was a window in the wall. It was very odd. I'll show you in a minute where that window is now. Just a space where I guess essentially Mrs. Avil could look out the window down the hall if she was in here getting ready. Now we needed that space, so we took the wall back to put this beautiful double vanity here that Marvin built. And that's the tile that Jo thought played so well with the tile in the primary. Now if you turn your head around, you can see the wall right there. That's where it brought the wall out. So it actually was even with the left side over here where that mirror is. So what was left there was basically just a little crow's nest space. You could walk out, you could look down the stairs, you could look out that window, and that's really it. Now, right here where y'all are, actually this piece was on that side of the stairs. So right here was just a full wall, all the way to the ceiling. There was a full wall down the hallway here. There was no library and no bathroom like there is now. This was one bedroom, this is Captain Abil's bedroom, and that was Captain Abil's private balcony out the window there. Now, we didn't need another bedroom in this house because we have 4 with a bonus room in the basement that could be a 5th. What we needed was another bathroom in this house. So we took the bedroom out, put a bathroom, you'll see in a minute, and of course a beautiful library here because what castle wouldn't have a library? And Joe loves libraries in all of her spaces. Marvin built all of this from scratch, just like you'd see 100 years ago. You don't see any hardware at all on these shelves here. And that arch plays really well off the arches we see in the windows and the doors here. Great. Has anyone been to the library at the hotel?
Yep.
Have you? If you haven't had a chance, you should absolutely check it out. It's absolutely gorgeous. Marvin also built that library. If you haven't seen the Fixer Upper of the hotel, when we got to that project, this was actually the last project where we were still sourcing books by the pound. But we got to the hotel project, Chip bought a bookstore from Archer City, Texas. It was owned by Larry McMurdy, who wrote Lonesome Dove. So in that library are all the books from his collection. They're all from the 20s and 30s. They have his typewriter down there and a photo of him. It's a really cool little space to just feel like you're going back in time over there. You should definitely check it out. This one isn't as big as the last one, but we can all get in here.
She does gorgeous. Yes, she does. Look at that shower fixture.
Yeah, we can all get in here. Not as big, but we can all get in still. Things to note in here, one is this is where we lost our mantle. So this mantle was rotten. We had to remove it. Joe could have sourced another antique mantle, of course, for this house, but she didn't want to compete with the mantles in this house. It just doesn't seem like it was fair. So I put a basic mantle there, and then we did source this piece. This is from Europe. It actually used to burn coal, but it burns gas like all the fireplaces now on this level of the property. And of course, we see that beautiful black soapstone again. All together, just really play on the warm, masculine feel of the space in here. Picture that you see above the mantle here, this is of Roy E. Lane. He's the architect of the home. He was the architect of the Alico building downtown. You guys have probably seen Waco's high-rise building, the Hippodrome Theater here in Waco, our Hotel 1928 building, which was the Karam Shrine building. He was the architect of that building also. He was also the architect of the first country club here in Waco. It was called the Waco Club, H-U-A-C-O, named after the Waco Indians that Waco was named after. He was only in his early 30s when he designed this house, and then he went on to Dallas to design for the rest of his career. But this was painted. Yes, take that jacket off. It's much more work in here. The sun is beaming in the window right now over here. Should close this curtain and open those 2 side curtains. But every time I move these curtains, everything falls. As we come down here, the temperature drops a couple of degrees. That's because if you look in the windowsill right there, and you see how wide that windowsill is, that's all stone in the wall there. That's stone. This is stone behind here, and here, stone in that wall there. This is our closet, but you can see the stone facing of the house here. Now, when we bought the house, at the end of this hallway here, there were steps and a screen door. That's where the help would access this level of the property. We did take it out because we don't need 2 entrances onto this level. So basically from right here, all throughout the rest of the space here is all an area where the help worked. We don't think help ever lived in this house. We haven't seen evidence of any space for that to happen, but we do know they had help in the house. So where you guys are all standing, this was the kitchen, and the dumbwaiter was right here. We did take out the dumbwaiter, of course, but we couldn't compromise any of this space because all of this brickwork here supports the big mantle we saw in the dining room upstairs. So we had to do something here. If you guys are big Fixer Upper fans, you might know that Chip and Jo don't usually put TVs in their houses. They don't have a TV in their own house. We've only done 3 ever on Fixer Uppers. They just don't think it's a priority. But we had to do something here. So Joe said, I'm gonna suck it up. We're gonna put a big screen. So our first ever Fixer Upper big screen right here. But they did have Marvin build these doors so someone can cover it. They like to do that. So I'm going to talk about the downstairs space here, and you guys can wander, and if you have any questions, let me know. And then we'll go to the last room together. This room that you see here, we see that curved wall again. That tells us that we're below the drawing room. That room originally was the boiler room. That's where all the radiator connected down to that space. For us, that's our guest room. That's the third line of wallpaper from that William Morris collection. And also the only room where Joe's ever done wallpaper on all 4 of her walls in a space there. And when you go to the right here, you're going to see an empty space. That's what we call the bonus room. That's where the meats and the cheeses were stored and wine tasting was conducted. And what looks like the closet is a continuation of the turret. That was the wine cellar. We didn't do anything with it, so the new owners can decide if they want a one-off room like a gym or an office or a craft room, or if they want a bedroom. That's up to the new owners. Now, if you come this way, there's 2 more rooms. On the right, you'll see the laundry room. That's where the butcher worked, and that's where Chip found the bones in the crawl space on the shelf. And the left side, you'll see the bathroom. That was the pantry. So feel free to wander. Let me know if you have any questions.
Fine. There's the curved wall on that one. This is the guest room she was talking about. That mirror's awesome.
Now they've been in the house too. It's fun to see it after you've been in it.
That's the closet that had the screen door. It's all stone.
Well, oh, you're probably right. I remember this.
Waiting for the 2 of them to be on the screen again.
Oh, wow. The laundry room.
That's nice.
And another bathroom. Oh, wow.
Poker room.
Hey, I can just spread around in here. Yeah, you can see we're a basement, but we're not completely below ground. So it brings in all this beautiful natural light. It's perfect. I come in here all hours, and if there's sun outside, there's plenty of light in here. You don't need lights on at all. Back to that. I don't want to spoil anything. So this room is really interesting to us because this is the only room on this level of the property that the Bills ever finished. So we know this obviously was not a room for the help. All of this paneling is original to the house. It was still on the walls. It had spray paint all over it. But luckily Marvin's amazing. He took it all off the walls, refinished all of it, and put it all back on the walls. The ceiling, the walls, the mantel and fireplace, all original. The tile is different. There was a green tile with a ship on the front, we do believe was original to the Beals. It was cracked and broken, so Joe removed that. But she chose this beautiful flat tile to really play on the warm masculine feel the space in here. Same with the carpet. This is the only room in the castle we did wall-to-wall carpet. Again, to play on the warm masculine feel of the space in here. So we have a couple theories as to what we think this room was used for. We know the carriage house was outside. We know from photos there was a beautiful drive up from Franklin here. It was covered with a trellis and ivy. So it makes sense that the family used this like a mudroom, because what you can't see is that that door was actually not there. It was about 6 to 8 feet down a little hallway. So there's a space where the family could come in, right that little space, and take off their boots and take off their coats, and then come in here and warm up by the fire and go directly upstairs, never really accessing the rest of the downstairs space in the house where we know the help worked. But also, we all felt that masculine feel when we walked in the space here. I think it hit all of us. We never saw full wall paneling upstairs. This doesn't feel like Mrs. Abeel's taste. This really feels like a space that was probably more closely tied to Captain Abeel, where he sat and sipped whiskey and smoked cigars with his man friends. Back in July when it was really hot, I walked in one day and I could smell cigar smoke really strong in here. I'm not saying it's haunted. I'm just saying I think that the walls, because it was so hot and humid at the time, that they were releasing that smell of cigar smoke, because 100% I could smell it really strong. And I've had other guests come in and say they could smell it. But that's exactly why we have Captain Abeel's picture right there. That pencil drawing is of Captain Abeel. That was presented to Chip and Jo by the Baylor professor who was helping them with all the history of the house. And they thought this is the best place for him to live, because it does feel like a space that probably was more closely tied to him than anyone else. And I love when other people feel that feel, because it really, I don't know, it's just part of the history of the space. I feel like it's just a very masculine space, and it's kind of like a little, I don't know, the left behind imprint on this room is just being a very masculine space. It's fun. But Chip was upset because there weren't any secret doors in the castle, of course, because he's a 10-year-old. So he cut into the paneling here and he made himself his version of a secret door. It's a closet. I mean, maybe someone will buy the house and make it something cool. But we did find some secret compartments in this room only, and I'll show you. So all the windows have these, but I'm going to show you guys this window because this one opens the easiest without me knocking everything over. the windows open. And you can see the stone facing. There's also space where you could hide things in there. Isn't that fun? You Bills did live here during Prohibition. Maybe that's where they hid their whiskey and their cigars.
Okay, Mom's gonna try Dr. Pepper for the first time in 83 years. I don't think she's a big fan. You don't like it?
I guess you acquire a taste for it.
Oh my gosh.
Is it on?
Yeah.
All right, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Remember, starting in 3 weeks is when we start our new season, I guess you could say. So, all right, we appreciate everybody following. And remember, God loves you, but only Jesus can save you.
See ya.